一蓋丸3には高密度中域を抜けます。
よし、座標を T5031 に合わせろ。
了解。伊勢をスクリーンに出します。
重力座標にイレギュラーを確認。巨大なエネルギー、異常なスピードで接近中。質量は70の9乗メガトン。
16点回答、側弦ロケット噴射。本中域を離脱する。ワープ座標算出始め。
3、2、1。
来るぞ。対ショック防御、防御シールド展開。宇宙歴346年、今未知の力により新しい時代が始まろうとしていた。それは神の意志か、それとも運命のいたずらか。それでも人類は前人未到の地へ進む。人は言う、宇宙は星の海だと。
So, this has been a bit of a treat to play through. This is the original Star Ocean as was remade for the PSP, and Square Enix has now re-released it on modern platforms. You can get it on PS4 now, Nintendo Switch, I think PC, and possibly Xbox as well, so it's there. And it's really good. I'd never actually played the original Star Ocean, so I came to the series with Star Ocean 3 on the PS2, and fell in love with the series. I really enjoyed the fourth one on PS3, and I was one of the few that even enjoyed the fifth one on PS4, which did not go down well with people, it must be said. But I'd never gone back to play the original two, and I still haven't played the second one, but now I can say I've played the first, and it's a really, really good game. I have a review going up on digitallydownloaded.net soon enough, probably within the day, so check that out once it's up. But I thought I'd do a video talking about Star Ocean as a general thing, because it is Square Enix's unknown property a bit. It doesn't get the same attention as Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest, or even some of the more minor ones. But it is a very worthy series, and I think it does deserve more attention than it probably gets. So the thing that's really appealing about Star Ocean is that it takes Square Enix's love and heritage of traditional fantasy-style JRPGs and blends it in with a Star Trek-ish science fiction kind of setting, and that's a really enjoyable blend. I mean, Final Fantasy has always dabbled with that blend between science fiction and fantasy, but it's always been within the one kind of cohesive world. It's never had that kind of planet-to-planet hopping that Star Ocean does. And there's always that blend of high technology cultures and whether they should interact with low technology cultures, and when they do end up interacting with those low technology cultures, how they handle it, how those cultures respond, and how it affects kind of the plot that plays out. Because even though these games take place in a local setting, so you're always on a single planet, or you spend time on a series of planets, but each time the issues that you're dealing with are quite local, there's this overarching plot which is quite galactic, and the stakes are really high. This one, for instance, has exploding planets within the first couple of hours of play, and that mix is really nice because you can concentrate on the immediate kind of moment-to-moment storytelling and action, but at the same time you have that kind of that sense of scale behind what you're doing as well. And there's always the promise that by the time you get to the end, the stakes are really, really high. And these games have always done their best to really present themselves as epic in scope. This is originally a Super Nintendo game, of course, so it feels a little bit small by today's standards. But when you look at Star Ocean 3, for example, that game appealed to me originally because it came on 2 discs, 2 PlayStation 2 discs, which promised an awful lot of gameplay, to say the least. And it delivered. It was a very big game indeed. Star Ocean 4 again promised that kind of huge epic scope, and that's really appealing to me, and it's something that Square Enix doesn't do in any of its other series to quite the same extent. They always have this kind of epic feel to them, but they never have that additional scope of being kind of a story of galactic proportions. I'm not that familiar about why the original Star Ocean came into being, but as you can see quite obviously from the video footage in front of you, it was a response to the Tales series quite clearly. Square Enix was, or Square and Enix, they were separate companies at the time, but they were always about the kind of turn-based RPGs, or Final Fantasy had the ATB system, but it was quite static. Whereas the Tales series was all about kind of that immediate kind of button mashy, for want of a better term, action combat. And Square Enix, obviously Square, I believe it was Square originally, saw that that was a popular thing, and decided to take their own swing at it with Star Ocean, and it works quite well. The combat system is better in more recent games, of course, but with this one you've got plenty of skills to play around with. It doesn't feel too pacey to the point where you feel like you're too busy being active to really kind of be strategic about which enemies you want to attack and stuff. There is, I mean, it all kind of works, and it's a nice combat system. It's not the reason that I've ultimately kept playing this game, but it's enough that the quite frequent random encounters never bothered me throughout my playtime either. So, you know, I prefer turn-based combat, I must admit. As a rule of thumb, I like the kind of strategy of turn-based combat, but when it's done like this, it doesn't offend me by any means, and it's quite enjoyable. I've kept the video footage to the first couple of hours just so there's no spoilers in there or anything like that, and you can get a sense of, you know, how you start out playing this game. As you can see, it's not too intensive, it's not too demanding of you. The combo system gets a little bit more complex. It's not really a combo system. The skill system gets a little bit more complex as you go along, but it's never onerous, and it's just quite a nice, easy playing video game, really. It's also a really good example of how Square Enix can modernise its games without losing the original heritage of them. As you can see, the sprite work is quite nice, but on top of that they've layered these kind of anime-style cutscenes and character portraits, which help you to really get a sense of the various characters that you come across. And they are an eclectic bunch. There's a lot of humour that runs through the game, there's a lot of different cultures, and all of that kind of combines to make a really enjoyable kind of personality behind the game. And those portraits really help you to get into the characters and really get to know them. The anime style cutscenes, what I really liked about them is that they're very much styled after kind of 80s anime, or 90s anime, earlier era anime anyway. When my wife saw the anime cutscenes, she immediately thought that they were part of the game, and when I told her that this was an older game. So that kind of goes to show you that Square Enix, in making this remake, has really thought about how to retain the heritage of it as a classic game. And I think I said this with the Saga review as well, Square Enix so often ruins its kind of classic games by trying to modernise them with high definition sprites and stuff. For them to really kind of retain the heritage with this one has been really enjoyable. It feels very much like a Super Nintendo game that I'm experiencing for the first time, without having to wade through the less appealing presentational elements that you get from some of those old games that Square Enix remakes now. I do get the sense, having played the most recent new Star Ocean game and looking back at the series, I do get the sense that Square Enix doesn't quite know what to do with this series now. You look at some of its other properties, Final Fantasy, for example, with Final Fantasy 15 had that huge open world to explore. Final Fantasy 14 was truly massive in scope, being an MMO and stuff, and a popular one, so it's continued to be built on. Dragon Quest XI is absolutely mammoth itself and has that real sense of scale to it as you explore the worlds. I get the sense that with Star Ocean, Square Enix isn't quite sure how to do what it did back with these earlier games to the series going forward, if that makes sense. If you consider that Star Ocean was about that extra step up from the other RPGs in terms of scope, the galactic scope as such, doing that on modern hardware with the, I guess, the expectations for presentation that people have of a Square Enix JRPG now, that would be very difficult to do, especially for a property that has always been kind of within the B tier of the company. And I just get that sense that the company doesn't quite know what to do with Star Ocean to modernise it, to continue it to go forwards. So I get the feeling that it's pushing these kinds of games out to see if there's still interest in the series, and if there is, we may see another one down the track. But yeah, it might not be the full-scale thing that we've seen from Star Ocean in years past. Anyway, that's my general thoughts about the series. Do tune in to my review when it goes up tomorrow or whatever. And thanks as always for watching. Over on digitallydownloaded.net we are doing our Games of the Year thing. It'd be great if you could go and have a read of some of those and see what some of the games we thought were the best of 2019. If you enjoy my videos, please do back me on Patreon. I always ask for that. I guess it's kind of begging at this stage, but it is nice to know that people do enjoy my games and my videos and whatever. And speaking of games, you can get my visual novel that I've produced off itch.io. I'll put the link in the comment section. But thank you very much as always for watching. Do let me know what you think of Star Ocean if you're playing this, and we will see you at the next video.